Today with Deb Goldman, celebrant from Massachusetts and faculty member for Ceremonies and Families and Children. I'm Cindy Reed, the Director of Academics for the Celebrant Foundation and Institute, and we're going to be interviewing Deb today about a beautiful ceremony she did for her sister Lisa. It is called a 40th birthday adoptive mother-to-be ceremony. So it had a couple of different purposes. Deb was the creator but not the actual officiant of the ceremony, and she's going to talk to us about the process of creating the ceremony, what she learned as a celebrant from it, her favorite things, what she might change. So it should be a great learning tool for students to see what goes into creating a ceremony like this. You have the script for this in your Class 2 materials, so please read the script first. If you're listening to the webinar, pause it right now, go read the script first, and then listen to this because I think in conjunction it's going to teach you a lot about being a celebrant. So welcome, Deb.
Thank you.
Tell us how the ceremony came about. This was for your sister Lisa, right?
Yes.
And what were the circumstances that led to you performing or you creating the ceremony for her?
Okay. Well, there's a little history involved, which you'll learn when you read the ceremony. It's a multi-layered ceremony. Lisa was turning 40, so many of us want to mark our 40th milestone birthday, but for her it was a particularly poignant threshold in her life. She had just been healing from having breast cancer for the previous, I believe it was 4 years prior to that. She had been diagnosed with breast cancer. At the time she was diagnosed with cancer and going through her treatment, her engagement was called off, and at the end of a long treatment process, which she was so courageous through and did an amazing job with, she was in menopause, so she was no longer able to have a child of her own. And my sister had always imagined herself being a mother from the time she was a little girl. So very courageously, and at the end of a very long, difficult grieving process, she decided to adopt a baby on her own as a single parent. So as she was turning 40, this was her moment to reclaim her life, to embrace herself, to kind of complete that healing and grieving process and call her amazing community of friends together to support her in moving into this next phase of envisioning and becoming an adoptive parent.
So how were you involved in it? Your sister lives in Illinois, correct?
Yep, she lives in Chicago. I live in Boston.
And so you were the creator of the ceremony. What was that process like, and how did that come about?
So I created the ceremony with her exactly like I would create any other ceremony with a client, except, of course, I had all the background and history with her. So what I did is I began by having a conversation with her. It was I'm finding when I create ceremonies for individuals, milestone birthdays, baby namings, mother blessings, ceremonies that are more personal, that the initial conversation is a little more of an evolution, and we're really kind of trying to figure out what it is the person wants, what her goals or intentions are. So we had that initial conversation. She knew she wanted a party. She knew she wanted to celebrate her birthday. She knew she wanted to kind of bring forth this idea of adopting a baby. And she was actually also very intentional about asking for support. So this was going to be a very large party. It included over 100 people. And she was actually asking for support to pay for the adoption as a single mother. She trusted that there would be people in her community that would support her in this. So the party was also to ask for support as well.
So financial support and support for her as a single mother?
Yeah, support for her vision. First and foremost, support for her vision. And Lisa has this incredible belief that we're all in this together. We're all in this life together. She's been a single person her whole life, and she's supported herself. She has an incredible community of friends and family and coworkers and colleagues and people that she teaches with and creates with. And she just has this huge community. So it was her way of calling her community together to thank them for supporting her through this incredibly difficult period in her life. It was very important for her to thank this community. She wanted to share her renewed sense of faith and hope and love, and she wanted to, provide a venue for sharing that and being an inspiration. And she wanted to kind of put forth her vision and ask for support in holding that vision.
And
so
we have up.
Go ahead.
We have up here on the screen now a picture of your sister Lisa.
Yep.
Lovely. And I'm imagining that her hair is growing in after treatment. Is that true?
Yep. This was one of very fashionable short haircuts after she had completely lost her hair. She looks beautiful at this point with her hair back. And she is such a brave person. I can't even tell you. She went to a wedding in this very dress she's wearing in this picture, with having completely lost her hair, her eyebrows, everything, and she just went to the wedding being herself.
Yeah.
And that's my sister. She's just herself. And this ceremony is completely reflective of her. So, because of course I know her well, I had all that in me, but also I went through the same process I would with anyone else. We had the initial conversation, and then I created a questionnaire for her. The questionnaire is also in the class files for everyone to read. And what I did is I had looked at other milestone birthday questionnaires. I had also looked at questionnaires for creating a mother blessing, so an expectant parent to be questionnaire. And I had also looked at baby blessing questionnaires just to get a sense, because this was honoring her process of becoming a parent. So what I did is I took questions from all of the questionnaires that I had looked at and tailored this questionnaire to fit this occasion. And, of course, there were also a few pieces in there to honor the fact that she was coming through a healing process as well. So the questionnaire was tailored specifically to her, but you'll notice that it looks a lot like many of the other milestone birthday questionnaires. And then I had her take her time to complete the questionnaire. It's very long. If I were to do this over again, the questionnaire, I would have probably made a little bit shorter.
Do you think you made it longer because you knew so much about her?
I think I made it longer because we were trying to meet a few different purposes. We were honoring her 40th birthday, so there's this whole part about honoring her whole life up until this moment, and we're honoring that she just went through a healing process, and we're honoring that she has this vision of becoming a parent. I probably could have asked the questions a little more concisely, so that's what I would do differently. And it was hard for her to complete it. It was a very thought-provoking questionnaire. And she is a much more of a verbal and kinesthetic person. She's a dancer and a dance therapist and a performer, and she does improv. So writing is not her first mode. So this is a perfect example of how, some people will get a lot down in the questionnaire, and some people you'll need to finish that questionnaire up with a phone call, which is what we ended up doing. So she actually is a beautiful writer, and she did do, I'd say, 3/4 of the questionnaire in writing, and then we decided to finish it up with a follow-up phone call.
And did you interview anyone else for the ceremony?
I did. So you'll notice in the ceremony there's kind of an ode to Lisa, which is a collective memoir from her immediate family. So that includes myself and 2 other sisters and my mother. And I believe I probably integrated things in there also from my husband, who was her brother-in-law, and my mother's husband, who's her stepfather. And what we did is I gave those sentence starters. You'll see that the memoir is divided into sections, and each sentence in each section begins the same. So I gave the sentence starters to my sisters and my mother and myself. And then we just wrote our own responses to that. Then everybody sent that back to me through email. So I had it typed out, and then I combined it. I reordered it and organized it in a way that made sense and put it into the order that you see now. But those are reflections from her whole immediate family, with the exception of my father, who had already passed away. And that was read by her sister, one of her
Who
sisters.
was present at the ceremony.
Yeah. And we placed that in the ceremony at the point where we had just lit a candle to remember the people who could not be present, either because they had already passed, and that included my father, or because they couldn't be present due to distance. And unfortunately, my sister Shauna was the only one who was actually able to be present from our family, so she's the one who read this memoir on the behalf of the whole family.
And that's that when you say the sentence starters, you're talking about the I have known you as section of the ceremony?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, her vision for the ceremony, you've talked about the different intentions or purposes, really the three, the recovery from cancer, the survivor aspect of it, the adoptive mother-to-be, and then this milestone birthday. Did you feel that there was too much going on, or did you feel like it worked, that it wove together?
Both in writing it and in the doing of it and in the reflecting of it, it was completely integral, all three of those aspects. And I've even asked her about it. And she said it couldn't have been any other way because that was the moment. That's what was happening in that moment of her life. So if we were going to honor her 40th birthday, we were honoring that she had just healed and recovered and come through this incredibly difficult time in her life. And we were going to honor that she was moving forward into being a parent. So standing at that threshold of 40, to speak her truth and to tell her story, we need to honor all of that.
So that it would have been, in a sense, artificial to divide those up and do different rituals for each?
Yes.
Talk about your, what did she want to include as far as ritual elements? Did she come to you with song ideas? Because there were some beautiful songs, and obviously she had talented friends who sang those. Or did you make suggestions? How did that work?
Well, she's an artist. She's a choreographer. She creates performances, and she's a dance therapist, and all of her friends likewise. So it wasn't too hard to do this part. It was pretty darn easy. She had all the song choices. She had chosen all the songs. You Take My Breath Away, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and This Little Light of Mine. This Little Light of Mine lent itself perfectly for everyone to join in and sing at the end. It lent itself perfectly for everyone to have a candle, to hold up their candle and sing and make a wish, and then, blow out the candles and send the wishes out. So the song, was absolutely perfect for a closing. And we did create song sheets, and I did a little bit of research there because that song has a lot of verses. So I went to my old song book and looked at all the verses and just picked the ones that seemed to really speak to where she was in her life right now and that would kind of speak to her vision for the ceremony. So we Taylor picked the verses that we included. We made song sheets just to make sure everyone would join in. We handed them out, and then we had pre-selected people to kind of lead the song, meaning, we knew that they had strong voices, so they were kind of interspersed throughout the crowd. And then the other two songs were done as solos by a friend who's a beautiful singer.
I think that's such an important point that you make about the group singing, This Little Light of Mine. First of all, it's a perfect song because most of us at least know the tune to it. And then you talk about the practical aspects of it, having song leaders. Because people, her friends might be better at this since they are artists at group singing, but in a lot of groups, people aren't really comfortable with it. So you need to have those strong voices to really make people feel that they can participate. It sort of gives them an allowance to do so. So those are great practical tips when you're including songs. I want to go through, you have some beautiful photographs from the ceremony, but first let's just talk about what were your favorite parts of the ceremony and why?
Well, I love the altar. There's a photo of that. If we can find that.
Well, maybe we should do this. Let's go through the photos and you can kind of talk about it as we go through. So this is your sister, obviously part of the candle lighting ritual. Talk about that first, the choreography of that, because when you read the ceremony, it sounds like that could lend itself to chaos.
Okay, so just remember, although there are 100 people in this house, it was actually in someone's home. It's a very large house with a large living room, and then stairways that go up and down. So the house lent itself well to kind of creating this passageway through the house and up one staircase and down the other staircase and back into this great room. So that worked out well. The other thing you have to keep in mind is almost every single person there is a dancer or a dance therapist or a choreographer. So And the person officiating, it could have been me, and I would have fit all those roles too, but it wasn't. It was her creative partner, who's also a dance therapist, who's used to leading large groups of people in movement. So that, although it sounds like it was an issue, it was not an issue at all. He just was very easy, and we really thought this out ahead of time. So it's not that it just magically happened. We thought about how are we going to fit all these people in the house? Do we want to do it in the yard? There was a reason why we didn't do it in the yard. We did it in the house instead. When we formed the passageway, where are we going to go with it? That's where we came up with the idea of up the stairs and down the stairs. So we thought about that ahead of time, and we talked it through with the person officiating the ceremony. So, we had, and Lisa's a choreographer, so we had, kind of mapped that all out. How was this going to work? And we trusted that Chris and everyone there was going to be able to just follow directions. So all of the directions that he said are probably not in the script of the ceremony, but he just spontaneously was able to organize the crowd into a passageway.
Wonderful. So that kind of organically came out, but from a lot to planning. There was both a combination of spontaneity and planning that made it be executed perfectly.
Yeah.
Let's switch to the next photo. These are, I believe, the release cards.
Yep.
Now,
So
first of all, before we go, these are beautiful things that were made for the ceremony. And now, as a celebrant, what was your role in any of that, if any?
Okay, so there's a picture of a wishing well, which is absolutely gorgeous. I had no role in that. That was made by a friend. There are beautiful wish cards, and those were for everyone to write their wishes for my sister and for the children of the world, and to place them into the wishing well. That was also made by her friend. There are little bowls of art supplies, and there was a beautiful table of art supplies, and that was to make the magic wands. The magic wands was my sister's idea, and it's incorporated into the ceremony. And it was also a fun activity that was done before and after the ceremony, because the ceremony took place in the context of an open house, where people were coming and going, except that the invitation had been written specifically to indicate when the ceremony would start and end, so no one would be coming and going during that time. And
they actually, my understanding from talking to you previously, is that they sort of blocked people out like you would in a play, so nobody could go in during the first act.
It might not have been quite that.
That's strict.
That's strict, but I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I'm going to go to the invitation for a second, because that's an important piece. The invitation is in the class files.
Let me see if I can pull it up. I think I have it.
Yeah.
Whether it will show nicely on the screen size or not, I'm not sure, but let's see if we can do that. Here's the invitation, and I'm going to shrink it just a little bit so it fits on one page. Now, I don't know how well people are going to be able to see that because it's a little small, but talk about this.
Okay, so it's in the class files. They can see it. There's a beautiful poem in the purple square. She chose that poem. It happens to be a poem I had given her in the past, but she chose it, and it just speaks perfectly to this moment in her life, and it speaks perfectly to her. It ends with, "For the dance I dance and the music I make." And again, she's a dancer. So the poem was just really beautifully chosen for this moment in her life, and as a reflection of her, she chose that. She wrote the piece with my help. We kind of wrote together the next part. It's my 40th birthday, and I'm adopting a baby, which sets the intention for what this celebration is all about. So we wrote that together, and then just the details like you would for any party, where and when. But then we had to really think about this. She wanted it to be an open house. It's a large number of people. They're going to be coming and going. A lot of children were invited, people coming from all different directions. So there needed to be a way to make it both open and specific to the ritual. So we wrote on the invitation, "Ritual beginning at 5 p.m. Please plan your arrivals and departures before 5 or after 5:30. So we planned on the ritual being a half an hour and asked people not to arrive during that half hour. There's two other important things on the invitation, which we had to kind of conceive of together. One is that we asked everyone to think of a word that reminds them of Lisa, and a wish for her, because that was going to be incorporated into the ceremony. So it gave people a chance to think about that ahead of time if they weren't spontaneous thinkers on their feet. And then the other thing is she mentions the wishing well, and we very carefully crafted the language of this so that she was expressing her gratitude so that it didn't, sound offensive in terms of, making it possible for people to give her a financial contribution if they wanted to offer that. But there was more. They could just offer a wish. They could offer a blessing. So we had to kind of carefully word that wishing well section, and I went online and looked at other examples of wishing well invitations, and we really thought about how we wanted to word that. And that's something I helped her with. So as a celebrant, I have done that other times for these smaller, more intimate gatherings. When you need the invitation to have specific information on it, I have helped craft the invitation because it is actually part of the ceremony. It's not something that I would then go out and print and, she's responsible for that.
For the layout and the actual creating of the physical thing, but you would help maybe with the language.
Yeah, and making sure that the details that are necessary for the ceremony are in there.
I think that's an important distinction, too, with certain family ceremonies and, say, a wedding, if people are involved in that. I think family ceremonies, because they are sometimes atypical, lend themselves to maybe that more intimate relationship between the celebrant and these other details. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely, in terms of, conceiving of the space, how the space was going to be set up, inside, outside, the invitation, what needed to be there, the timing. I was part of all of that. I would not necessarily be part of any of that if it was for a wedding or a larger gathering. But these smaller, more intimate gatherings, I'm often part of that conversation.
I'm going to close that invitation out and now talk about, I'm showing now these release cards.
Okay, so
and in the background we can see a little bit, I think, of that altar.
Yep, there's a big picture of the altar you have.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's talk about the release cards.
Yeah, so they're angel cards. I think people know, a lot of people probably know about angel cards. And Lisa has a fondness for angels and a belief in angels. And that was part of the ritual language. There was a reference to everyone there being her angel. And release also being significant. They purposely placed that when they created the altar. They placed the release card on the top because here is this moment when she's kind of releasing the pain and grief and everything she's ready to let go of that preceded this moment in her life, and she's moving forward. So they put the release card on the top there. And then there was incense actually burning right near that, so that was kind of another symbolic element, as like as if she's releasing what she needs to release, and it's going up with the smoke of the incense.
Everything was so intentional here. I mean, every detail and every choice.
Yeah, that's what happens when your sister's a celebrant.
Well, and I would expect that from you too, Deb. And from our students. So I'm going to go to the next.
Pictures. Yeah, that's those are the art supplies for making the magic wands. As I mentioned, there were going to be a lot of children present, but there are a lot of playful adults present also. And this idea of magic, that we can bring magic into our lives and that miracles can happen and that our dreams can come true. That was kind of a theme of the ceremony. So she had art supplies for everyone to make magic wands, and that was, again, as a celebrant, I didn't have any responsibility for those supplies. We talked about them, and we talked about her needing to purchase them, but that was something that her friends helped her with.
And it's so wonderful, I think, the creation of things at a ceremony. And again, I think that family ceremonies or individual personal ritual lends itself to that because it's always sort of a process. It's a whole day-long thing, and you as the celebrant might not be there for that. But there's something tangible that you can create as a group, and then you can use it in the ceremony, and then you have it to take away. Yeah, it was perfect, and she did. She had pre-made her wand, and she used it in the ceremony. It was really great. I kind of want to make a magic wand now. I think that would be really awesome. You have to make one, Cindy. I do, and I know that my daughter my older daughter would love to too. All right, here's the entire altar. The altar. Wow. So you'll see in the questionnaire, one of the questions is, how do you want to create the ceremony space? How do you want to honor this is the 40th birthday, so honoring her life up until this moment. I asked her right in the questionnaire if there are any mementos or special poems or certificates or diplomas, pictures that she would like to have in the space. So she took quite a bit of time, as you can see, to really reflect
and go through her belongings and choose the things that were really significant and important to her. And she brought those to create the altar. And then she and my other sister created that altar together. And just a sweet thing that you can see up there are tiger lilies. See the flowers?
On the mantle up here.
Yeah, on the mantle. So there are tiger lilies in there. And this is hilarious. Tiger Lily was her Indian princess name when she was a little girl. But it's also very poignant. It's funny, but it's poignant because Indian princess was something that she did with my father. And my father had passed, so having the tiger lilies there was a really sweet memory of that as well.
This is such a great process to go through because, again, the ceremony itself is part of this process of the rite of passage. And so the process of creating a ritual like this, and I can see this being useful at so many ceremonies, to go back and to find these objects and photos and written things that say who you are or who you were or who you want to be.
Yeah.
And I can see using that at so many ceremonies.
And the guests were fascinated by the altar. You know, here are people from all phases of her life. And, of course, no one knows, you know, all these parts of her. And to bring this, I've seen this at other milestone rituals. It's a gift to the guests as well to be able to kind of see and look into this whole person's life. And you could do the same at a memorial or a funeral. It's such a gift to the guests to be able to kind of get this offering of all these different parts of the honoree.
Right, because each of us only knows this certain aspect of it.
Yep.
I'm going to go to the next photo here and give that a second to come up. That's part of the candle ritual. Is this toward the end, I'm guessing?
Yeah, that's coming through. So something very interesting happened during the ritual. The candle lighting did not happen the way that it had originally been planned. It happened in a better way. So for people who are open to spontaneity and don't need things to happen exactly the way that they were planned.
Which is a good way to be in ceremony.
Yep. This actually, a guest made a suggestion that made it so much more powerful than the way that we had conceived of it. So I think that's really important as to, you know, yes, we're honoring the voice of our client, and I don't want to say that we're going to just let random things happen during the ceremony, but to trust in the moment that, yes, this was going to be even better than what we planned. So originally we handed out the candles at the door. People were going to hold them during the ceremony. We were going to do this whole passageway ritual. Lisa was going to light her candle at the beginning of the passageway. That's when we mentioned her mentors and guides that had guided her throughout her life, and she was going to carry this light through the passageway. And this was the opportunity for people to lean over and whisper. You have a picture of that. In her ear, the wishes and hopes that they had for her as she's walking through this, into this next phase of her life. So as she walked through the passageway, all these people surrounding her leaned over and whispered a wish or a blessing to her. And then at the end, what we originally conceived of was that everyone was going to come into a circle. We were going to pass this light and talk about sharing the light and sing This Little Light of Mine. And then we were going to blow out the candles. Well, just as they're forming the passageway and everyone's holding their candles in their hand, one of the guests, who's a close friend of hers, said, "Are we all going to light our candle from Lisa's candle as she passes by us?" And of course they said yes, because here she is, like, bringing this light of hope and faith and love and all the support that she's received, and she's passing this light as she passes.
Oh, so beautiful.
This passageway. So it just worked out perfectly, and that was something that was spontaneous. And here she is emerging into the next phase of her life.
It's so beautiful. And you can just see even on the faces of the people around her, I mean, this beaming, this spark. It's so beautiful.
So happy for her, yeah.
And here is this, tell me what this is.
Yeah, that's people lighting from her candle as she's passing by. Because she's going through a passageway, so people on each side of her.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. And then I think that this is her friend, her very close friend, her best friend, is the one who welcomed her as she emerged on the other side.
Oh.
And she had written the most beautiful piece. It's in the ceremony. You can read it. Welcoming her into parenthood. It's just phenomenal. That I did not have anything to do with that except to ask her to do that. So she was another person that was asked ahead of time to participate, and she wrote this incredible piece, and then she read the piece, and this is them crying together after she read the piece.
I see the tissues in hand.
Yes. And that's someone leaning over to whisper as she's walking through the passageway, to whisper the wishes into her ear.
I'm slightly worried about that candle placement in that one. Maybe it's just the angle of the photo.
I think it's the angle of the photo.
And these are wish cards?
Wish card, yep. So everybody had a chance after the ceremony to write on the wish cards, and that was mentioned in the ceremony, the wishing well, and the wish cards were mentioned in the ceremony, but that was something that was done afterwards.
Yeah, I think one of the key factors here is have creative friends.
Yes, have creative friends.
Everything is so beautiful. I mean, it looks like a magazine layout. It's just gorgeous. And let's see, and that would be the wishing well.
The well that her friend made, the same woman who read the piece to her when she came to the passageway.
It's gorgeous. And what is this photo?
Well, this is the happy ending. This is when I always cry. So, as you'll see at the end of the ceremony, this ceremony was done 9 months after Lisa had completed all of her paperwork for her adoption and submitted it to the agency, and expected to wait 2 years. And she was told that she had low choosability because she was a single woman and a breast cancer survivor. So she thought she'd have to wait a long time. But 9 months, you'll take note of the 9 months.
Yes, the gestational period.
Yes. After we had the ceremony at that 9-month point, and 10 days later, 10 days after.
10 days.
10 days. Lisa went to work, and she got a phone call at work in the middle of the day. And they said, we have a baby for you. Can you come in an hour? An hour. So she had nothing. She was, I say in the ceremony, she had like a half a bag of diapers that someone had given her and a onesie or something. So she called all her friends, and she said, can we do this? And they said, yes. And someone went and got the car seat, and someone went and got the formula and the bottles, and many people got on the phone and called everyone they knew and gathered up clothes and blankets and everything she needed. And she went, and 5 hours later she became a mother.
Oh, my goodness.
And there she is. That's Olivia,
oh.
daughter. And she was 12 days old. And it's an open adoption, so Olivia was handed from her birth mother into the arms of her adoptive mother.
Oh, my goodness. So the power of sending out an intention to the universe, isn't it right?
Yes, yes. And everyone who attended the ceremony said exactly that. They said, wow, you really know how to do a ritual. Because, it was 10 days later and this happened.
That is amazing. It's amazing. And now, my next question, I'm going to skip for now because it doesn't go well with the emotional flow that we've just developed. So I'm going to ask you this one first. I'm sure you've talked to your sister about her ceremony experience and how it felt for her to go through the process. What was that like for her, and what does she say about it now?
Well, I think she wrote me a note, and what she says about it now is, it was one of the most important moments of her life, and led to this most important moment in her life, the day that Olivia came into her life. Mm-hmm. But it was phenomenal. The people there said they had never attended anything like that. They were blown away by both how personal it was, how open she was being. That many people said that it was a gift to them as well. This sharing of emotion and love and hope and the sense of renewal and courage and coming through, and just an opportunity for so many people that she's close to share their feelings with her. So everyone was just incredibly touched.
That is amazing, because it almost becomes a rite of passage, or at least an emotional transformation, if not a change in status, for the people who are there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Sorry, I got a tinge distracted there for a second. I think that's so true. I've thought about this many times when there have been rite of passage for other members of my own family, and we all need to mark the passage. You know, when the engagement ended, we all needed to grieve that. When your family member is healing from a terminal illness, that we're all part of that process. So this rite of passage, like you said, was for all of us to embrace her healing and moving into becoming a parent.
It shows how interconnected we are and how the changes in each of our lives ripple out and change others.
And it just perfectly set the stage for what was about to happen 10 days later.
It's an unbelievable, amazing movie ending, but it's reality. And now I think that both of us should go make a magic wand for whatever intentions we need to set out, and the students as well. And are there any other things that we didn't touch on that you wanted to share about the ceremony?
Well, I said so much already. I can't think of anything else. Like I said, the one thing I would change is the questionnaire was too long, and it's just important to remember that some people need to do that verbally and not in writing. Everything worked. Something that's really important to my sister, and she's mentioned it many times in terms of ritual, is that some people really want there to be spontaneity, and that was really important to her. So not everything was read directly off the script, and there were these little moments of spontaneity and silliness and playfulness, and that is exactly what she wanted. And, I think that's an important question to ask of the clients, how they feel about spontaneity. And, some people are not going to be comfortable with that, and some people are really going to want that. I've had other people ask for that as well. I wrote a beautiful script for someone, and they said, it's okay with me if you leave the script at home. Well, it's not okay with me. I need it. So I think when you're doing these smaller, more intimate gatherings, there needs to be at least a feeling of spontaneity, even if you're going to stick with your script. It's something to think about ahead of time, and how you're going to really include. It was a very inclusive, participatory ceremony, so I think that's really important also when you're doing something very intimate, that the participants feel very included, and they were in this case.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us about the ceremony and for the gift that you gave to your sister, and for the many gifts that you have given all of us with what you've told us today about it. Again, this is Cindy Reed, and we're here with Deb Goldman talking about the ceremony she created for her sister's 40th birthday, recovery from breast cancer, and as an adoptive mother-to-be with a very happy ending. Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome. Thank you.